Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Central Texas Life. It is a joy for me to have Brett and Emily Mills here with us today because they are the poster couple for what this podcast is all about. And that's talking to folks who've seen a need and said, yes, I'll do something. And then it becomes so much greater than anybody could have imagined. And we're talking about Jesus Said Love.
Yeah.
So
Exciting. Thank you for having us.
Oh, well, it's really, I just, when I think about how that all happened, and I know the story, but you may not know the story. So, Brett, if you would, tell us how the whole thing came about, that you started a ministry of reaching out to women and men in the sex trade.
So it started with me marrying a woman who has a crazy capacity to love people. We are musicians by trade, and we were at an event in Austin, Texas, leading worship for a conference, and women began to get up and tell their stories of how they were coming out of the sex industry by a group of church ladies who brought Easter to them. Just a real simple concept. And we were so moved by that. On the way home, Emily said, "Let's go to the strip club." And I said, "What?"
That was not what you were expecting to ever hear.
Wasn't expecting that. 2004, our oldest daughter was 1, and it was right around Good Friday. And so I said, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And so we went to our church and collected some gifts, some Easter bags, and Emily and her best friend, Dawn, went to the strip clubs. We had 3 at the time in Waco. And they said, y'all come on. And so Good Friday, 2004, began a journey that we had no idea we would be here today. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, and we've just kind of ended the Easter season. And so this is moving into a season of time where you're raising some money. So let's talk about Wild Torch before we go any further, because it's been on hiatus now for a couple of years.
Yeah, we've had a 2-year break because of COVID. And so in many ways, we feel like we're kind of rebuilding people's awareness of what Wild Torch is, because unfortunately it's like out of sight, out of mind. When you're not doing these events, people forget about you. And so the cool thing about Wild Torch is it really is an experience. We use the visual and performing arts to tell the story of women whose lives have been impacted by commercial sex exploitation. And we do it through the arts because music is universal. The arts are universal, and it has a way of hitting people and hitting the message home more than a sermon or a good speech could ever do. So it's really a beautiful event. This year's event is going to be really exciting because I found out probably about 7 years ago that Waco had a legal red light district at the turn of the century called the Reservation. And the interesting about this time period in Waco's history is that we were kind of becoming the epicenter of Texas. We were where the wild, wild west met economic, religious, and educational boom and growth.
Right.
So you had, we were also called Geyser City at the time. You had these mineral springs underneath major hotels in the downtown square. Baseball teams were here. They would come to the healing waters of these hotels, and yet you had shootouts. I mean,
Six-Shooter Junction.
Yeah, you had cattle crossing, you had Chisholm Trail, but you had Baylor University, you had First Baptist Waco, and prostitution legally happening in the midst of all of it. So it's just a really fascinating time period for us to look back on. Because it was legalized, we have records, health records. We have records of all the women who worked in the bawdy houses, B-A-W-D-Y.
Bawdy.
And they had these bordellos, and women would receive health care and things like that. So all of that's registered. What we know about them is that most of the women died of suicide, drug overdose, or violence. And
Which is not too different
105
from
years
today,
later,
yeah.
we just say, what's changed? So many things have, but what hasn't changed is the fact that poverty is still the #1 factor of women who are targeted for exploitation and trafficking. And so when we want to do something about this evil, and we want to do something about this vice, we have to look at poverty, and we have to look at what is driving women and why are they being targeted by men most of the time for this line of work.
Yeah, your event is set for May 6th,
Correct.
Friday evening. It's going to be at the convention center.
It
That's
is.
a different location. It
is.
seemed like the last one I was
Yeah.
able to go to was at the Hippodrome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful.
Yes.
Just so much fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, meaningful and impactful, but it's not, a heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of a celebration
There's a hope.
of what can happen.
Absolutely. We want to bring
Right.
humanity
Right.
to this issue. I think
Yeah.
sometimes when we look at the commercial sex industry, it feels so overwhelming. It feels like such an ancient problem, something that's bigger than
yeah.
we can do anything about.
right.
And what we're finding is, survivors are just like everyone else. They're smart, they're human, they're resilient, they have dreams and aspirations and children. And so they're wanting just as much from their lives as you want from your life. And we want to put that on display that night and what we're doing to watch that happen.
Yeah, you told a story. Your Facebook page, by the way, and it's Jesus Said Love. You can
Yeah.
go on. You've been posting some really fascinating historical pieces, and one had to do with a murder trial in 1891. Madam Hattie Tyree, who was on the reservation, as they called it, in Waco. And tell that story about her children.
Yeah, so what they discovered, Waco had before they had a legal reservation, they had licensed, there was a provision in our city charter that licensed some bordellos. So it wasn't fully the reservation at this time.
Okay.
But she had a license and she was operating this bordello out of her home. What they discovered, there was rumor that there was a murder trial that happened there. There was someone got killed. She got really upset, and the story's pretty interesting. And we'll have some of these documents on display that evening. But when the murder trial came about, they discovered over a dozen children under the age of 10 who were living in this bordello. And what was unfortunate about it is that no one in Waco would adopt these children. And they were denied public school education. So Child Welfare Services at the time, which was called something different than it is now, but they removed the children. They would not let the moms raise the children. And they sent them to what was called the Waco Poor Farm.
Yeah.
And it was a place where lower level criminals could work off their debts.
Oh, my goodness.
So these children who are only marginalized because of what their mothers have had to do to survive are now being raised at a farm for indentured servitude to work off debts. So really unfortunate and just really crazy to see the generational impact that this industry and also cities can have on children and policies that really could protect children.
Yeah. Brett, what has surprised you the most and what you've learned about the history of Waco and how it relates to the work you've been doing now for many years with these individuals?
So I think one of the most fascinating pieces of this whole deal is back then, the aggression, the anger, we're going to penalize you was on the woman, was on the seller of sex. And what we know today is the commercial sex industry, no one chooses to be a part of it. Like it chooses them based on their circumstances. We've been working with women for over 18 years now. We have yet to meet someone who said, my lifelong dream is to do XYZ. There's circumstances that get them in that.
And they think they have no choice.
And they think 89%
say they have no other choice. They have no other means of survival. So they have to do this to put food on the table. And so back then they penalized her. Today, what we know in our education of this issue, it's a supply demand. It's an economic engine. Commercial sex industry is $472 billion industry today. But what we know now, if we go after demand, then we can help rehabilitate the supply side. And so the beauty of it is another interesting piece. We'll talk about it Wild Torch. Guy McNamara, the great uncle of our current sheriff, Parnell McNamara, was the lawman in charge during the reservation. He was responsible for shutting the reservation down. In 1917, President Wilson issued a decree: if you're going to have a military base, you have to shut your red light district down.
Right.
So Guy McNamara was responsible for doing that. His approach was get the women out of town. They had until Saturday midnight to leave Waco, or they would be prosecuted on the spot.
Their pictures were plastered over every police department and around town and surrounding areas. The women's pictures.
Yeah, this kind of hurts my heart to hear this, you know?
But what is so cool is today, Sheriff Parnell McNamara
Oh, yeah.
now understands these issues. And so for him, it's we go after the bad guys and we help the women. Get them rehabilitated, get the help they need.
Absolutely. He sat right here on this sofa with Susan Peters.
Yeah.
And they've done so much with the sex slaves and those victims.
Yeah.
I would suspicion, though, a lot of the women that y'all deal with, it has been a little more of a voluntary entering into it than being kidnapped or whatever, you know, the horrors
so
you hear about sex.
When we think about the commercial sex industry, think of it like a wheel with spokes. So it's made up of prostitution, the porn world, stripping, novelty stores, and human trafficking. Okay? So when we think of it as a whole, yes, there are areas. For instance, someone who works at a novelty store went and applied for that job. Is that a dangerous job? Probably not. Are they contributing to the industry as a whole? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. When we look at human trafficking, do they choose to go into that? In most instances, no. Or knowingly, I should say, because what we know about human trafficking is it's about force, fraud, or coercion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they get duped into it.
Now, do people in porn choose to go do that? Maybe on the front end, but once they get into the industry, they're dealing with the same issues. 69% suffer from PTSD. 89% say they have no way out, but with no other means of survival. Right. So we're looking at the same issue. 70% of human trafficking victims come through the strip club, the porn set, and the streets of prostitution.
So I think that a new study that we've really looked at is understanding prostitution, because you're right. The concept is women in prostitution or women in strip clubs have some degree of agency to have chosen to be there, right? Mm-hmm. So what we've learned from this study is that 50% of women in prostitution have a third-party controller of their money. So that would mean that half of them aren't even in control of their own funds. The other statistic that we look at is of the human trafficking victims recovered in the U.S. borders are not foreign immigrants. They're United States citizens. The majority of kids recovered in human trafficking are United States citizens. So this is our problem.
Yeah.
And I really, really think that in terms of how we look, and that's what's been in my own life, I had bias. I didn't know I had bias against women in the sex industry, but I really did think there's some desire in her that is unlocked when she gets to dance on that stage, or she wants this.
An exhibitionist gene in there.
She craves this attention and things like that. And what I'm recognizing is that most of the women have been groomed, and what's been so convicting by childhood sexual abuse, that at some point in their story, their bodies were exploited, they were harmed, they were marred, and that leaves you being very vulnerable to re-traumatizing yourself, or being re-traumatized, I should say. And so really what's the context of her choice? What did she choose it? Did she want to be in the strip club? Was it just a fun wild hair? But what led her there? What's the context of that choice?
Yeah. What's exciting is that through Jesus Said Love, you are offering hope and you're offering answers. And we're going to talk more about that when we come back. Stay with us.
Frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about Frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Mike.
And we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Bros and heroes. Gonna tell you about bros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
Hi, this is Sarah,
And I'm Carter.
and this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and
vinyl.
So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
And thank you. We are back with Brett and Emily Mills. Jesus Said Love Wild Torch event is back.
Yay.
It's May 6th.
Yes.
And how can folks get tickets to this? A Friday evening event at the Waco Convention Center.
It is. It's a fundraiser. We are invite anyone and everyone to come out. Tickets are at wildtorch.com. We would invite anyone. We've still got sponsorship levels available, so businesses who want to jump on board and do something about this can absolutely join in.
Yeah. How many are you expecting?
Our goal would be 350.
Oh, good,
this
yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Well, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
The sad part is, before the pandemic hit, we were on course to fill the big room at the convention center.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We had already outgrown the Hippodrome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So our final event that was in 2019 was outside, and we had almost 600 people at that deal.
Oh, yeah.
And then the world shut down.
Yeah.
So we
Right.
are rebuilding, and so our hope is for about 350.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but folks believe in what you're doing, and we were talking about the supply and demand thing. Another outgrowth of this, Brett, is your work with the Johns. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, I married a woman who loves compellingly, and she had gone to a meeting of a group of like-minded folks, and one of the things they had agreed upon was we want to bring back some kind of intervention program. In 2013, the city of Waco had the very first John School of the United States.
Right. I remember we
And
reported
they
on that.
served
yeah.
over 132 Johns. It was facilitated through Waco Police. Detective Anita Johnson spearheaded it. And then a couple of years later, it got shut down. There was some politics at play, and it lost its funding. So one of the ideas was, let's bring the John School back. So Emily came back and said, hey, I signed you up to create a program. And my first thought was, I don't even know what
Tell
to do.
it right.
I don't even know what
didn't
to-
sign you up. I signed JSL
That's
up.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
But what happened?
But what happened was, as we got into it, it got me. The bug got me, and I was fascinated to learn of the issues of. I've never bought sex before, so to learn of these issues, and so I worked with Anita Johnson, looking at her content, and we realized very quickly we needed to create new content that was current, that was Texas based, and so we wrote a whole new program using experts in their fields. We talk about human trafficking, sexually transmitted diseases, the addiction cycle. We talk about your story, the fact that I can't move into healing unless I'm willing to own what I've been sick from. And so we pitched for about 2 years to the DA's office, to judges, to attorneys, help us get this program in the hands of people who need it. And so at the time, Abel Reyna, who was the DA, took a risk on us and said, okay, let's do it. And so to date, we've seen over 200 men go through our program. We've only seen one return
Really?
in the whole spectrum. Now, that doesn't mean that someone hasn't bought again, but
Right.
the cool thing is when they come into the class, most have their motivation of, I'm not hurting anyone, purely she chose to, I'm just helping her out. By the
they can
end,
rationalize anything.
by the end, I've seen grown men in tears.
Yeah.
Had not
When they
even-
realize
when
what they've
right.
done.
I had a detective from Bell County Sheriff's Department come and audit the class. In the morning, we're looking around the room, and she had arrested over half the room. Oh, really? Tensions were high.
I was going to say they could. I know you.
I was
Yeah.
really intrigued about how this was going to go down. She came at the end of the class. She had tears in her face. She said, Brett, I've never experienced anything like this. I just met 5 of the guys that I arrested. They hugged me and thanked me for arresting them, that they had to come to this class. And she said, this is better than jail.
Yeah.
Let's keep this thing going. And so now we're serving men around the state. And last week, we just won a grant for $80,000 to do a complete refresh of this program, to take it to the national level and put it in the Spanish language.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you, because I'd seen that you'd won a major grant. And again, this is another example of somebody seeing a problem and saying, yes, I'll do something. But I may not know,
Yeah.
but you figure it out. And then it becomes so much bigger
Yeah.
than anything you can. Is there like a typical profile of a guy who
The statistic is white, college educated male.
really?
That's the statistic, the official. I will tell you, amongst the 200 that I've worked with, I have seen anywhere from 18 to 85. No specific ethno background, no specific economic background. So we've had folks that are plumbers all the way to triple board certified pulmonologists.
Oh my gosh.
And the common missionaries, pastors, athletes, professional athletes. The common denominator that I see in the probably 99% of the cases is some form of an addiction to porn.
Right. That is kind of, if there's a gateway drug.
It is the marijuana of the sex industry.
So what can be done about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And that's part of our goal. Is Stop Demand School started as a sex buyers intervention course, but we can take this course. We actually just got off the phone with University of Central Florida to talk about educating the hospitality industry there. They have a 4,000 person hospitality. They're the biggest hub for hospitality workers. And it really is about using this curriculum in churches, in corporate America, and as a sex buyers intervention tool. So it can be used and modified in multiple ways. You can teach different modules to really educate about what this issue, how it's driven by pornography.
I think too, it is important that we do talk about it. Particularly in the church, we tiptoe around it. We keep it very antiseptic. At the education, I teach a lot of this material at Baylor, particularly in the human sexuality department. When we put real life words on these subjects, that's when the light bulb goes on. For instance, the average age of viewing porn today is 8 years old.
Oh, gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
8 years
And
old.
it's because of the phones
because
and
of the
the
phones.
accessibility is there.
Right. And so an 8-year-old
my
doesn't know
word.
to look for that. It finds them through whatever,
Oh.
but then it ignites biological things within them to be curious, and then you go down a rabbit trail. And now what we see is from age 8 to age 20-something, if you've been watching porn regularly, you've rewired your brain. And so now we're seeing erectile dysfunction drugs being prescribed for 20-somethings more than 60-plus diabetics, which is what it was intended for. That's
Wait,
what
yeah.
we're dealing with today.
I'm speechless. I mean, I really.
Yeah. And we've really, so some of this for us, because the reality is if you have a child, I mean, we've got 3 kids and we,
They're growing up. I saw
They're
your
growing up. Our
Easter
oldest-
picture, and they're
Yes.
just beautiful.
Our oldest
Beautiful
is at
family,
college,
yeah.
and
But I
there's-
remember when they're,
Yeah. And so they're growing up in a different world than
Yeah.
we grew up
Oh, I know.
in. Their exposure rate is so much higher. All of our kids have been exposed already, no matter how good of parents we were,
Yeah.
they're exposed, right? And so the grace to us that has been Jesus Said Love is that we can work to remove that shame barrier, and we can bless the curiosity and say, and the fear of, hey, so who showed you that at school? What did it make you feel like? Did you want to look longer? Well, that's natural. But let's talk about some ways that it can actually be harmful if
Yeah.
you keep doing it. And instead of it coming, but that's bad, don't talk about it, you're grounded, I'm throwing the phone away.
Yeah. Wash your mouth
it's-
out with soap.
It's let's make
Yeah.
sure we're we're being proactive as
Right.
parents. We work a lot with Talk More, Tech Less, which is a tech prevention they teach in the schools, China Spring, Midway, Waco ISD, to talk about all the filters you can put on your phone, all the ways that you can have digital wellness in your life instead of digital addiction, because that does play into the sex industry. And now it's all moving online. Even clubs are shutting down. And they're not, I mean, we had 3, we have 1 now, but most of it's moving online. Women are
And it's just been an economic
OnlyFans,
thing.
Instagram, paid ads, all of that is happening
Really?
online. Yes. So that's just the trend. And so it's so important for us to talk about these issues and really ask better questions about what is it that continues to drive up the appetite and the demand, and what is it that's driving the supply? Is it we don't have, as women, good enough pay, good enough job opportunities, the ability to work from home with your children? Daycare is crazy expensive. What are the options there for women?
But Jesus Says Love has been a very, or said love, I
Yeah,
get it
it's
right.
hard.
He says it too.
Yeah, he does.
But to provide
Yes.
training, to provide work opportunities. Let's talk a little bit about that.
That's the most exciting thing. I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, watching the transformation of not only our organization, but of survivors has been
Oh,
the
yeah.
highlight.
It has to be. It has to be so rewarding for you.
Yeah.
To know these
And humbling.
individuals
It's
whose
just-
lives have been changed.
Yeah, so entrepreneurs, Luna Juice Bar is a business
Yeah, I
we
know.
invested in.
I know.
Waffle Chick Waco. Randa Hart does eyebrows, and she's looking at another venture. We just got a call from a survivor in Florida who's looking to open an Airbnb and wants our help with the business plan on that. So it's just incredible to watch women thrive. But probably, I think one of the coolest things since the pandemic has been that we've increased survivor leadership on our board and on our staff.
Good.
So our case manager is a survivor herself. Our director of social enterprise, giving jobs to women, is a survivor herself, both of whom we met in the clubs, who have transformed their lives and are working professionals now, working alongside other nonprofits to rehabilitate survivors, working for, with law enforcement on advocating, working with buyers from major corporations to get our products into their storefronts so that we can hire more women. And it's just incredible to watch them come into themselves.
It's true. It truly is. Everybody needs someone to believe in them.
Right.
And really, we get asked this all the time. You know, what was your business plan 18 years ago? We didn't have a business
I'm
plan.
going to say,
And this was about going to the strip club to take Easter.
Yeah.
That's
you
that
took
was
Easter
the plan.
baskets. Yeah.
That was the plan. But now
Yeah.
it is, we just make space for people to win and get out of the way. So if someone says, hey, I've always wanted to do this, then we'll go, we know someone, or let's figure out how to make that happen. We can do that. And then we get out of the way and they win. So the beauty of it is it's not us fixing it for them.
Correct.
Right.
It is their hard
Yeah.
work and
we
their
always,
success.
Our taglines are awaken hope and empower change. And what we've learned about empowerment is that it's an inside job. And a lot of organizations who have a desire to help people end up becoming enabling organizations.
That's not good.
And that's not good. We don't want to do that because it takes power and agency away from them being able to self-actualize into who they want to be and where they want to go.
But I know you've developed so many amazing relationships with people you never dreamed.
Never dreamed.
You would just have a piece of your heart. And yet there have been some that have lost, you've
Absolutely.
lost along the way, and it's like a
Absolutely.
family member.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I still, I know you've heard Kathleen's song before, and we've lost 4 recently survivors. Dixie, back in 2011,
Yeah, I remember
was our
that.
first real loss, just tragically in a motorcycle accident. But since then, watching women have overdoses, car wrecks, heart attacks because of drug addiction and just the life that they lived, it doesn't get easier. I think what I'm accepting now is that grief is a part of experiencing great joy. And so I have to, to become desensitized toward every loss, because we're going to lose more
Right.
women. I mean, we lose in life. We lost Brett's dad to COVID. Loss is part of life.
It's hard.
And so I think I'm learning through this work that, walking and wading through grief can be a gateway to beauty and to joy.
Well, you're doing so much to bring beauty and joy to lives that think it's hopeless.
Yeah.
And that's what's so remarkable about what is all about Jesus Said Love, and your willingness to say yes. I want to do something, and then just see, with amazement as I am just watching, and seeing what all you've been able to accomplish. But I like to end these little visits. It's a little questionnaire that the wonderful late great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actors Studio.
that's
So
so
I'll just kind of
great.
ping pong between the two of you. My little take on it. Brett, we'll start with you. What is your favorite word?
Oh, what is my favorite word? Bless.
Yes.
Yeah. It's bless. I want to be a blessing. I want to be blessed. I want to see people blessed.
Yeah.
Just love that.
Yeah. Do you have a least favorite word?
Moist.
I've heard that before. That's
hilarious.
that's great. Okay. What turns you on creatively, emotionally, or spiritually, Emily?
Nature,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love being outside. I love being on the water. I love dogs. Nature.
Yeah. Then what turns you off?
I'm going to get in trouble.
Go for it.
Hey, it's a podcast.
Oh,
Just no profanity.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I think what turns me off, I'll say I get a little itchy in some super religious environments now.
Yeah.
I've had to work through that. And I think it's because I feel now often what survivors feel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah,
I
get
have
that.
them always before me.
Right.
And I feel
kind
like
of
many
filter.
ways I am just like she is.
Yeah.
We just ended up in 2 different places.
But for the grace of God.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
so sometimes those really like I'm such a spiritual, religious person, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a real pat answer or boxy environment that doesn't allow space for difference
Pharisaical.
is a
maybe?
turn off.
Yeah,
it's a
maybe
turn
a
off.
little bit.
I
Yeah.
might flip a table.
Okay. What sound do you love the most, Brett?
Next to Emily singing.
And it's amazing. And you'll be performing at
Yes.
Wild Torch.
Absolutely. We've got new music coming too.
I
so
can't
you'll
wait.
Have to come.
Yeah.
The ocean.
Oh yeah.
The ocean is my happy place.
Okay. What is your least favorite sound?
Vomit.
Okay. All right. What other profession would you have liked to have tried?
Oh man.
Come on, babe. Tell them.
It's
You
like
know?
you know.
Do you know something?
No, I mean,
Oh.
I have an idea.
I mean, I have so many.
This is
I
like the
am a
newlywed game.
classic. I have so much of that entrepreneurial
Yeah.
drive. I mean, a writer, a background singer for Sting.
Oh yeah.
I would have loved to do that. I would have
You
loved to
could
go
have.
on a tour
Oh
with
yeah.
like a major artist. I would have loved that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I was going to say sing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got the
Yeah.
vocal chops for it, for
Aw.
sure, for sure. Well, what do you know you would not want to do professionally?
I would not want to be a dental hygienist. Zero,
Oh, wow.
zero parts would I ever want to do that.
Aren't we grateful for them, though?
I'm so grateful. Yeah, I have an appointment like in a couple of weeks,
I
and I
know.
always feel better.
Yeah.
But I just wouldn't want to do that all day. It's so technical, and it's involving so much.
Mhm.
All the
It's intimate.
it's
It
yeah.
is
It is.
extremely so. Yeah.
Yeah. So-
All right. And finally, for the both of you, what do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You guys did it well.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I think of well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
But I think, I think I also am really excited to hear welcome home.
Yeah.
Just welcome.
So often, this last question gets folks tearing up. I'm tearing up. I'm doing my Barbara Walters on myself. Because, I mean, I look at the two of you and it is being well done. And I thank you so much for being with me today. And again, Wild Torch, May 6th,
Wildtorch.com.
wildtorch.com. Hope
Don't
to
miss
see
out.
everybody there.
Yeah,
Thank you
Thanks,
both.
Ann.
And thank you for being with us. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.